And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. Adults aren't the only ones carrying the burden of the tragedy in Uvalde. Kids are too. It hits home with them, especially because other kids died. My next guest has advice for parents who may be wondering how to talk to your kids about this horrific event.
So, Angela, it's tough enough for many of us adults to deal with this tragedy that we're seeing in Uvalde, but now we have to sit down and make sense of it to our children. So, how do we even start with that?
So you're right. I think one of the biggest things that parents need to do is get their emotions in check, right? Before having that conversation with your kids. We all most likely were triggered by what we saw yesterday.
Yeah.
So how do we regulate whatever emotions that we have, fear, anxiety, sadness, anger? So it's really important to get ourselves in check. The other thing is thinking about what's the goal of that conversation, right? Is it to just make space for them to talk and think about what's going on, or how are they managing what they heard, or maybe not. And so it's really thinking about that and keeping that top of mind. Then I think it's also thinking about the time and location, right? Having one-on-one conversations with each of your children. You know, I have 3 children and they're all of different ages. And so having that space and making sure it's not, constrained or too rushed. I think it's really important to be able to do that. Soft startup. Right? I always say to parents, think about a soft startup, especially difficult conversations. I love you and I want to talk to you about something. I love you and I want to check in. I love you and I don't even know how to start this conversation, but it's an important one I want to have with you. I think those are really, really important. I think for parents to keep in mind, at the Menninger Clinic, I teach this to all our parents. We were created with 2 ears and 1 mouth. So it's really important in this time to use those listening ears. Be there to listen to misinformation or misconceptions or fill in gaps for them. I think this is a great opportunity for that, and validate what they are feeling. What they feel is what they feel. And then if you don't know, I think be honest with them. Say, I'm not exactly sure what happened or what was going on. If we don't know the answers, don't lie. Be as honest as possible. And I think the last thing that I would say is really reinforce that we love them, that we as parents, the schools, the community all want them to feel and be safe. And that is a goal. And we are always going to try to do that moving forward.
Now, Angela, what if you have a child that may watch this and internalize it and become fearful of returning to school? How do you address that if they're thinking, Mom, Dad, I don't want to go back to school because this could happen to me?
So I will tell you, even in my personal life, I think after one of the shootings here close to Houston, that happened. And you know your kid best. And when they're saying things like, I don't want to go to school, or every morning my stomach is hurting, I can't go to school, I think that's when you say, wait, time out, what's going on, right? And process with them. What is it about going to school? And a lot of times with younger kids, it's about, how do I know I'm going to be safe? How do I know? We get overwhelmed with that anxiousness, and they don't know what they would do. So really saying, hey, what has school taught you about safety drills when intruders come in? What are you supposed to do?
Now, what about your child watching this on television, the news coverage? Should you at some point say, okay, that's enough, or allow them to watch as much as they want?
I think especially with younger children, we want to be protective. I think it's okay. They're going to hear it on the news, social media. We're not going to be able to control all of it. But I think it's also important as parents, we know our kids. When do we need to say enough, right? Enough for tonight, enough, because the more they watch it, they might be more anxious. Sometimes kids out of anxiety want to learn a lot, right? They want to read, they want to learn a lot, they want to talk a lot. But we also know that our brains need to slow down. Our brains need some space and time. And so to be able to say, hey, why don't we go for a walk today, right? Like, you watched a lot, let's talk and walk about it. How do we move them into kind of getting back into a routine? We wouldn't be watching the news for 6 hours straight on a regular day. So how do we get back to go to baseball, go for a walk, let's go play with the dog?
All righty. Angela KRIV with Menninger Clinic, thank you for joining us here on The Factor Uncensored tonight with this valuable advice for parents out there.